Hello and welcome to another Standing Stanley Tucci. I'm doing my Pauly Shore impression. Major
Yes,
flamage. The Tucci-age. Hey guys, I'm David.
I'm Hannah, and we're talking about the worst movie ever made today.
Not even close. And
Oh,
we've
I
done
don't
worse
know.
movies for other podcasts. It's just the worst Tucci film so far. Um,
This it was barely watchable. Ugh.
No, yeah. Pauly Shore is not famous for making watchable movies. He's famous for making movies that were annoying to the older generations and thus were endearing to the MTV generation, the disillusioned Gen X slacker stoner generation. And I mean, this movie is, like, I think, a perfect encapsulation of 1995's youth energy, or comedy energy. I mean, like, Pauly Shore is obviously not a youth in this movie,
No,
but
no.
he's embodying that slacker Gen Xer aesthetic.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is just not a movie that holds up to current standards as far as racism and
Well,
sexism
okay, yeah,
and
obviously. I
like
mean,
transphobia.
1995, Hannah. 1995.
I mean, there are some things made in 1995 that I think you could still
Yeah,
watch today, but
but not
like,
made by Pauly Shore. Anyway, so we're doing jury duty.
yeah.
So this is a film which I
Is it?
assume was written and created and conceived entirely around the O.J. Simpson arrest and trial. But I don't know for sure. The premise is essentially, what if in 12 Angry Men the the juror was Pauly Shore and
Yeah,
was therefore the most annoying stupid man on the planet.
yeah. It's
It's a
it's a
decent
terrible.
premise.
Is it a good premise?
I think it's the kind of premise that would inspire someone like Stanley Tucci, a fan of the theater, to come on board. 12 Angry Men is, one of the great American plays. Uh,
Yeah,
Obviously, for those of you who don't know the story, um, it's set entirely in the deliberation of a set of jurors, the 12 Angry Men, as they are all convinced that this young boy is guilty and should be put to death for this murder. But only one juror stands up and says, maybe there's reasonable doubt. And he convinces everyone else in the room that there is reasonable doubt. And then the play ends with them, thanking him for, his service to America, for saving this boy's life. Now, imagine if that guy, instead of being this great orator and rhetorician and, brilliantly convincing, was just like an annoying guy stalling for as long as possible because he wants the $5 check that comes with being a juror.
well, also the really nice hotel room too.
Right, yeah, he ends up in a swanky hotel. So where does the Tooch come into all this, Hannah?
He is a fellow juror.
Right, yeah.
And then
But is this a
later, should we
a
spoil it?
minor role for the Tooch? Another sort of background, like, character like he had back in the Pritzi's Honors days?
Yeah, I was really worried going into it because like he really is. He doesn't get a lot of spotlight. It's mostly just Pauly Shore for the
Right, for the
majority of
first
the film.
hour and 15
20
minutes or
minutes,
so.
yeah. Um,
And then
but
there's
we get a
a
Disney twist
grande
villain.
realization.
I think you mean Disney twist villain, David.
There's a Disney twist villain. Although this is not a Disney film. In fact,
No.
Pauly Shore had a falling out with Michael Eisner over him canning a project he wanted to work on and forcing him to be in a project that made him cut his hair. So this is one of Shore's first non-Disney projects.
Yeah, it's not good. Um
But Tucci
But
is a Disney twist villain in the style of Hans from Frozen,
Frozen.
or any number of other
Turns
Disney
out
twist villains.
he was the murderer
Right,
the whole
the one you would
time.
least expect, which is
The
why in a
environmentalists, David.
right. And I thought it was super interesting because he comes on and he's playing this nebbishy sort of everyman. He's kind of an environmentalist, but like he's not super well defined. And
Kind
he's
of
just like
germophobic.
playing a very non-Tucci like character. Tucci characters are either like scumbag loser, like coming in and begging for money or love or something, or they're like fancy rich guy, like
Being a
mob bosses or
douchebag.
criminals, or sometimes just like snooty wealthy charismatic guys.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is like the opposite of everything Tucci has been cast in so
It was
far.
it was fun to see him though in this like sort of new paradigm, like
Yeah, with the round
as he's
tortoiseshell glasses, and the yeah.
it's interesting though because
Shabby clothes.
he's doing like he's doing a voice for this one too. He's sort of talking a little bit like this and a little bit higher register than he's normally
Right.
in.
He's just going for full nebbish, and then when the reveal happens and we find out that he is the murderer who had snuck into the juror, he snuck into the jury in order to nudge the verdict towards guilty for this patsy. You find out that he's really the criminal, and he like drops down into a much lower register, switches into his it could practically be like one of his mob roles from his early TV things, because it's over the top, but
it's very cartoony, and I think some of that is the direction. I don't think he would have necessarily played it up quite as much left to his own devices.
Right. I mean, half of his shots are the camera will like quick zoom into him, or even like dolly in on his face, just like really weird shot composition to like highlight his ridiculous performance.
Yeah. Which
So
I think he does. It seems like he has a fun time with it.
yeah, so I wanted to sort of go through from the start back at the beginning and run through a couple of interesting moments and sort of describe the setup, because it is sort of surreal, and I know no one is going to watch this film.
Do not watch this film.
So the film opens on them arresting this serial killer who's like a he only targets like fast food restaurants, and they arrest him, and then it cuts to like this scene out of Magic Mike where Pauly Shore is working as a male stripper at a place called IHOB, the International House of Beefcakes. And the joke is he's not sexy because he's playing a milkman, or in other words, he's the cream machine.
Yeah.
Which is gross.
It's very gross.
Then there's like a transphobic joke where like a deep voiced woman asks him out, she's the only one who's interested, and then he goes like it's gross, and I'm like not exaggerating how not a performance this is. Like, maybe I guess it's a performance, but I wouldn't call it acting.
Yeah. It's just transphobia someone decided to film, and then
but he's not even like going like he's not like doing
he basically acting. Is
no
right.
He's just going like
but like that's his like understated Pauly Shore bullshit where he's
that's
like,
what I'm saying. It's so understated, like his comedy. It's not like if Adam Sandler were in the role, for example, or I don't know, Jim Carrey, like they would at least make a meal out of that reaction. even if it is a transphobic reaction. You know, Jim Carrey has a similar role in one of his,
right,
a similar joke in one of his movies.
yeah,
And he at least makes a meal out of the reaction, so it's like something entertaining to watch. I don't know. I'm focusing on this particular joke because it was just my first real exposure to Pauly Shore's non-acting acting.
got it. Yeah, so you know, he goes home to his mom, who he lives with in a trailer
Right.
park, and she's got
And
a
the
boyfriend, and they're getting
the soundtrack comes on.
the only good part of the movie, though.
But I don't even know if I get it. Like, what
I
they're
don't get
going
it
for.
either. It doesn't make any
So
sense.
this song comes on, and it's called Sweet Soul Review. It's a Japanese song
It's a
by
Japanese
a group called
pop
the
song.
Pizzicato Five. And it's just like a poppy sort of late 60s kind of Japanese song. It literally sounds like an anime opening.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's my favorite part of the movie. They also end the credits
Right.
with that.
But there's
that
no
song.
like references other than just like a few racist jokes about Asian people to Japan.
No, there's no one Japanese in this film.
Like
Japan
Pauly
has
Shore's
nothing to
character,
do.
whose name is Tom Collins, by the way, like so funny, like the drink, like a Tom Collins. But yeah, it's so like he has no like Japanese obsession that would justify that song coming on. It comes on and then it just cuts off in the middle. It's totally insane. There's no explanation for it. So I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, no, the song is incredible. But right, so you know, we're home, he's a slob, he's jobless, you know, and just a lot of jokes at the expense of working class people.
Poor people, yeah.
Yeah. And so his mom and her boyfriend go to Vegas to get married, and they take the trailer, and so they're like, you got to find a place to live, or you could stay with the neighbors where it's more working class and ableist jokes. Ha ha. So good.
Right. Now his mom is actually played by Hollywood actress Shelly Winters, who you might know as Lolita's mother in Lolita, the Stanley Kubrick version. Like, she's a very famous actress, and this was actually her last on-screen performance.
I'm so sorry for her.
I know. Like, how would you feel? And also is the last performance of Billy Bird, who plays one of the jurors. So like, for two people, the last film they were ever in was Pauly Shore's Jury Duty. I also noticed that Shelly Winters' character's fiance, I think they're trying to do like a reference to The Graduate. I may be giving them too much credit, but
I think so.
He's obsessed with polystyrene, so like these non-recyclable styrofoam containers. And he like goes up to Pauly Shore, who's like, I don't have any career goals or prospects, I'm a loser, I dropped out of high school, whatever. And then he's like, the thing that's going to be the future, polystyrene. So it's sort of like Dustin Hoffman's character being told about plastics. So like, I don't know, it's like there's almost writing going on, but there isn't. There's no writing.
No.
Just references and jokes at the expense of poor people. So anyway, so since they take the trailer to go get married, they take the mobile home to go get married. Now Pauly Shore is homeless for a week. And so
but he got a letter.
Jury duty.
Exactly. He got a letter about jury duty where they house you and give you $5 a day. And so he went.
Which I don't know if we said specifically that he got fired from his job stripping by Andrew Dice Clay, who is uncredited in the film. I think because he just sort of got asked onto set by Pauly, like they probably know each other, they probably get along. Andrew Dice Clay, everybody. And that's he plays his Uncle Sal. And then it's like he also has an Uncle Morty who's a bus driver. Like he gets off a bus and he's like, thanks for the ride, Uncle Morty. And I'm like, what is the joke here? Like, is the joke that they're not really like his uncles, or
is the joke that poor people have a lot of family?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, that's when the Tucci shows up and he's going around asking everybody, hey, trying to get out of jury duty, trying to get out of jury duty, trying to get out of, because he's trying to get somebody to switch with him who's going to be on this case. And he would take their identity, because you can't just get on jury duty. You can't just volunteer to be a juror.
Doesn't work that way.
And then there's a joke, which I think is why the whole movie exists, or it was added in late in shooting. But Pauly Shore goes, "Look, it's the juice. Run, OJ, run." Because OJ was on trial when this film came out, because it was like greenlit production probably right when he got arrested, and there was that low speed chase.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for a fact. I just know that OJ jokes were huge in the 90s.
Yeah. Right. So, he worms his way out of cases that look to be pretty short because he wants to stay for as long as possible.
Right.
And
an annoying montage ensues.
Yeah. He gets on the serial killer case. They go to the hotel. They think it's going to be nice.
He takes a bus to the hotel and he starts doing like stand up on the bus to no effect on the audience or on the bus patrons, the other jurors. So he can see all of the jurors, but we're still going to like pretend like he didn't know that his high school principal was sitting like right there, like in the shot. But then later, when they're put in the same room together in the hotel, he's gonna be like, "Principal Beasley, what?" Like, you saw him.
I mean, he's an idiot. So like,
Okay, fair enough. But then why would he recognize him later?
He was close enough.
And you may notice that the Principal Beasley, is played by Richard Riley, who's had 2 Tucci connections before this. In Prelude to a Kiss, he was the old man's son-in-law. And in The Public Eye, he played Officer O'Brien, who has the weird line about, I don't know, something about taking photos of a dead guy's dicks. So that's Richard Riley continuing his bizarre and varied career. He has a very like identifiable voice now. I feel like
identifiable.
I feel like I'm gonna hear it everywhere. Another identifiable voice is Brian Doyle Murray, who I know as Captain Knuckles from the Misadventures of Flapjack, and as the Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob. But you may know him from his like other TV roles. He's just got this like really iconic sort of scratchy voice. And he plays like a hot tub salesman or something. I don't know. He's just like a generally rich guy who in a well-written script would have, required different kinds of convincing in the trial, to be convinced that this guy wasn't guilty. But in this movie, he's just there to be Brian Doyle Murray. Any other stars that you recognized in this jury? Yes,
there was, oh my goodness, what is her name? It's the mom from Holes. The mom from Holes is the redhead.
The mom from Holes is the redhead. Yeah, it's Siobhan or Siobhan something. She's got one of those Irish names. I also noticed Tia Carrera, who is Nani from Lilo and Stitch.
That's why I recognized her voice. Okay.
Yeah, so she's the love interest, Monica, who is, obviously going to at first be put off by Pauly Shore's antics, but then come to respect him, only to have that respect taken away when you find out he was only lying about caring about the case, and then to regain the respect when he solves the crime and then kiss him in the final scene. So it's pretty by the books. There's just no like extra effort done here. So like
for any of it.
While I think that the concept like could have been a good movie with a different actor and a different writer and a different director. Like, I think the concept itself of like, what if it's 12 Angry Men but stupid? Like, that could be funny, but it wasn't. So that was it. I'd say, you know, if I have to pick a whomst we also for this one, I think I probably would say Brian Doyle Murray. You know, I think he's a swell guy. They're all like good character actors. I mean, who don't have like huge careers, but who just, you know, you recognize them. What about you? Do you have a whomst we also?
I mean, I think Richard Riley is like becoming a mainstay of this series.
He's a very entertaining high school principal. I like him in that role.
He's just got such a good voice. He's great, you know. Hopefully he isn't definitely props terribly to problematic.
If I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, moving on. Oh wait, I forgot about the real whomst we also, Dick Vitale. Dick Vitale is a basketball announcer and former basketball coach, and then they have him come on to do court TV, but he just announces it like it's a sports game or like a, you know, a boxing match or something. And he's like, this I can't even do a Dick Vitale, but he comes on and he does like, this guy, he's got 2 wins, 2 losses. He's not, you know, it's an even fight. And then his like head inexplicably explodes.
I forgot about that. I did forget about that.
It's just like a random cutaway gag that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it's like, it's very Family Guy.
Right, yeah. There's a running gag that the principal, Richard Riley, listens to loud self-help tapes, which frustrates Pauly Shore because he can't sleep with that self-help crap on. I don't know. I assume in the script originally he was snoring loudly, and then someone was like, let's punch this up for the 90s. What's annoying in the 90s? And it's like,
well, I feel like Pauly Shore's character, you know, he's like slacker number 1, so like self-help, oh man, I don't want that.
Right. Anyway.
Sorry.
Anyway, so he eventually gets to switch rooms in the hotel by agreeing to advertise the hotel on TV. It's very silly. Oh, we never mentioned that he has a dog named Peanut this whole time, who's like a little dog. To do silly 90s dog things.
Yeah, they do dog
Beethoven
stuff
all over again.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, there's a long montage of him basically holding the jury up once the trial finishes.
Right.
Like we get some court
trial.
Right.
It's like it's all done in montage because there's no one wants to actually sit down and write a scene. Like that's the real problem, is like it's so ADHD that like no one can just sit down and be like, all right, now we're gonna write a scene with dialogue where he tries to keep the trial dragging on as long as possible and they're trying to keep it moving. It's just like them like torturing him and saying like, vote guilty, and it's like, yeah, you guys are worse than he is at this point.
So yeah, it's very dumb. And then eventually, you know, Tia Carrere's character is like, listen, I was with you at first, but you haven't made one good point. You better make a good point tomorrow or else. And he's like, oh shoot, guess I better make a good point.
Right. Well, no, he then starts quoting 12 Angry Men, which is on TV.
Yes.
In order to convince her that he really does care about, you know, getting this guy off. So anyway, that's the point where he dresses in drag to have a conjugal visit with the defendant, the supposed serial killer.
Yeah.
And then they do like multiple jokes about like, he wants to have sex with a man. That's funny.
Well, at first he doesn't want to have sex with a man, but then later he's like, why not?
So then he comes in the next day and he just comes in and he's like, pointing out that all of the evidence was either circumstantial or profiling.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to write an actual case that could be convincing,
right,
and why they wouldn't have seen certain evidence as being reliable or whatever. It's not about their biases. It's just literally like every single witness they had was like, well, he said he was going to kill me the day before.
Yeah.
And then I assume he went and killed, and like, oh yeah, he fits the profile. And it's like, yeah, well, if all of the evidence is circumstantial, of course there's a reasonable doubt you're not going to sentence that guy to death.
Yeah. So, he slowly
even if they
convinces...
did, there'd be a mistrial and there'd be like an appeal,
Yeah. Yeah. It was a horribly built law drama.
Yeah, they didn't really make an effort in that regard, but
no.
But Frank is just there to be like, well, who, if not this guy, then who committed the crime? And then being like, that's preposterous, like really overselling every line. So that's Tucci doing that.
Yep. And, again, been dropping hints the whole time. Like, each of the jurors kind of has like their own quirk.
Gimmick.
So, right, their own gimmick. Like one of them is a pregnant woman, one of them knits, one of them
is like a Guido.
Yeah, another one is like an immigrant, like there's all like
and he's like, I'm so grateful to be in this American justice system. That kind of thing. Anyway, Frank / Tucci's thing is that he likes recycling. He's an environmentalist, and he thinks polystyrene is going to destroy the planet. So they get the guy off because all the evidence was circumstantial. and then while but not before Peanut accidentally leads Monica back to Pauly Shore's fancy room, so she realizes, oh my god, you're not really a man of justice, you're Pauly Shore.
Yeah. And so, of course it's revealed there's a mistrial, everybody goes home, but then, he's suddenly caught up in all of the justice and like seeing it through. And then he realizes, oh my god, because his mom's boyfriend, his stepdad comes back and is like, son, we're gonna go picking. And then they go find polystyrene.
Some polystyrene, and he realizes all of the restaurants, the fast food restaurants where people were murdered, had polystyrene cups and plates and all these other things. And he's like, it's about non-recyclables. I figured it out. And so he calls Monica, and Monica, of course, doesn't believe him. And then he calls the Tooch because he's like, he loves non-recyclables.
He shows up at the Tooch's house, but the Tooches conveniently just arrived to kill the guy whose identity he stole? Mark?
Yeah. So it can't be traced back to him.
I guess. But I feel like that guy...
But I mean, think about it. If Tom Collins had shown up to that house and gone in and seen the guy that he thought was Frank, or the guy who isn't Frank lives in Frank's house, he would be like, wait a minute, so you're telling me this other guy impersonated you? And then he'd go find him. So it's actually a really good thing that he was going to kill this guy, because it would have been traced back to him. But he was in the middle of killing the guy.
Yeah, of course. And so Pauly Shore entirely ignores this.
Right, because he's an idiot. And so they go to the library to visit Monica because, they're all getting the gang back together. But Tucci wants to go see her because he wants to kill both of them because they're the only two people who know he did it.
Yeah.
And he pulls out a gun and then ties them up to slice them up with a fancy knife. And it's like, why would he do that?
Yeah, why not just kill them the same way that you kill everybody else? Yeah.
But that's okay because he calls Peanut to come help him, but Peanut gets stopped because Jeopardy is on. And the dog likes Jeopardy. But then Jeopardy goes to commercial break. And so the dog does save them. And this is the second time that Stanley Tucci was a villain who was mauled by dogs.
Yeah. It's great because you can definitely tell that dog was just thrown at him and like he had to catch it and like fall over very dramatically.
Right. I don't even know if that would fly by today's standards. They would have had
Probably
to do it CGI.
not.
Anyway. So then they kill him because he gets some asbestos dust in his face and he freaks out and screams like a little girl.
Because he's germophobic.
And then they push him off a ledge, and then they're like, haha, shows you for being a psycho-environmentalist.
Yeah.
And then this is actually like a punchline that I think is kind of funny because it cuts to like the big award ceremony that they have in like every movie for like the heroic acts that Pauly Shore has done, and they have this giant check for him, and you think it's going to be like a lot of money, and it's $5 for doing an extra day's worth of jury duty. So like as a punchline for the whole movie, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked that one. Of course he's making out with Monica, and then he decides that, instead of being the cream man or whatever he was before, he's the creamer. He's gonna be a judge, and he does stripping as a judge, but it's still terrible. But apparently he makes enough money to go to law school. That's
right. And then Peanut wins at Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And they play that song again, the Japanese song.
Soul Review, right?
Sweet Soul Review.
Yeah.
Bizarre. So
That's
yeah, I don't think
terrible.
Tucci would look back fondly on this role, but I think it is a stepping stone, like so many of these films before. This is showing a range that Tucci has not shown previously, really at all. I mean, he's played some characters who are a little bit more nebbishy, but not quite this over-the-top cartoony, nebbishy, whatever. And then the fact that he can do the flip, and he can go from nebbishy to criminal. Obviously he was cast as villain because Italians in the 90s often get cast as villains.
Well, also his filmography to this point, he's been like a mob guy. He's been Beethoven, like.
You're absolutely right. And he's a cartoony villain who can get mauled by a dog on camera. That's in his special skills on his resume.
But fast forward to Tucci news, guys, the biggest of news that everyone should care about a lot, because everyone cares about the Emmys a lot.
Yeah, we love the Emmys. Tucci won an Emmy. This is what would be his fourth Emmy, I believe. He has 4 Emmys, 10 nominations to date. And this is his fourth. Obviously, for Outstanding Hosted Nonfiction Series or Special 2021 for Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy on CNN. We've been talking about this show for a while. It's gotten huge praise for its, just delightfulness, and for him specifically as a host. And now he's got an Emmy. Not a lot of people paying attention to the Emmys this year, other than the standard hashtag Emmys so white, and Tucci obviously contributes to that because he beat out Oprah, who had the special where she interviewed the royal couple, and then also beating out what was the name of that show, United Shades of America with W. Kamau Bell. So yeah, shame on you, Tucci, for beating out nominees of color.
But also, we're here to stand. So go Tucci.
Right. I mean, the Emmys last year, I think, were overshadowed by COVID, and the Emmys this year were overshadowed by nothing because nobody cares about the Emmys. But we're still proud of you, Tooch, and we hope you get many more awards in the future. The Oscar snubbed you last year, but you'll get that Oscar. I know.
Oh yeah, we believe in you.
Anything else to say about about the Emmys, or any excerpts you want to read from any of these these pieces or anything?
I just want to say that every Emmy should go to Tucci for the rest of time because that's Stan
Well,
logic.
then it'd be Emmy's so Tucci. Hashtag Emmy's
I-
so Tucci.
I think we as a culture maybe need to accept Emmy so Tucci. You know, it's
Right.
time.
Well, he also beat out David Letterman, who is not a real person anymore and is just a cartoon character. And he beat out Vice. And then it says that he was not there to present the award or to accept the award because obviously
In the UK.
he's in the UK, stranded still. The same reason he couldn't take that role with the earlier in the year. But he had pre-recorded remarks. But it also came with this revelation that he had battled cancer 3 years ago, which I didn't know. So he talked about struggling with that disease, and he talked about having to use a feeding tube and his treatment. But yeah, I mean, he kept that silent. I guess because he thought it would affect his roles or affect his perception in the public eye. And it's becoming, I think, increasingly common for celebrities to sort of keep their illnesses private. It's none of our business really, but he's also coming clean about it. I think partially in the wake of like Norm Macdonald and all these things, because you want to raise awareness and raise money for cancer treatment as well.
Well, Chadwick Boseman too. Like,
yes, did he die of cancer? I can't remember.
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's I think that's sort of like a downer way to end it, but congrats to Tucci on the award, and we look forward to seeing more Searching for Italy from you in the future.
Yeah, and hopefully next week's Tucci or the next Tucci we watch will not be nearly as tedious as this. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool, man. I can't do a Pauly Shore.
Pauly Shore. Made you flamage.
Oh my god.
Made you